All right, welcome guys, everyone, to the first of, I think, hopefully many interviews with people who I find kind of in and out of shmup existence, you know, maybe older players, newer players. I just want to kind of highlight some people who I think, you know, to me kind of end up being special in the community because they've either made some contributions to, you know, videos or in this particular case, a website, stuff that I think really needs to be highlighted. And, you know, today we're kind of joined by, you know, Edward, aka Kollision, known as Collision BR on YouTube, and you know, I stumbled upon his site 1cc. I believe it's called the 1cc log, and it's a blogspot site. And you know, I've seen some of the videos. I've also heard his name around the community, like, oh yeah, Collision got this score. Oh yeah, Collision cleared this shmup. And so, you know, me being newer to the genre, and you know, maybe some of you guys watching being newer to the genre, I just don't feel like Collision is just this word associated with these high scores. And there's actually a big website behind all of this, and there's actually other intent behind some of the stuff that Collision does and has done for the community. So I really wanted to highlight it and really get from him some of his experiences. So Collision, welcome to the channel.
Hi. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm Edward, guys, and I am the writer of 1cc log. And let's go.
All right, perfect. So, you know, I guess off the bat, you're not natively an English speaker, right? And I know the log, like, I didn't even know that reading your blog spot. I was like, oh my god, this thing is this is totally in English. So like at some point I started to realize that, oh wait, like maybe you weren't like a native English speaker. Like, just, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of, you know, your background and maybe parlay that into like your first experience with games?
Oh, yes. I'm not a native speaker. I am Brazilian. And a while back, I started the blog in order to practice my written English. I needed to do it because I was losing contact with people from abroad who I worked with at the time. And I thought it was a very nice way to actually practice and deal with the hobby that was taking over all my gaming time. By then. It was around 2009. But when I was a child, actually, I played everything, of course. We all did it when we were growing up. But there was a time when I kind of felt that shmups were in my heart as a gaming preference. And years later, when I was actually working and I was an adult, and I had the resources to actually dedicate myself to the genre and to gaming in general, that's when I really embraced shmups, and I started the blog. So that's why I started it, and I really wanted to have a title that was related to the shmups. So I chose 1cc log. It was supposed to be my log for 1cc's. That's why. That's the origin of the blog.
Yeah, let me quiz you a little bit. Do you remember the first post that you made on the blog, like day, date, year? Do you have any? I have all that here because I was doing my reading. But do you remember?
It was ARM formation for the PC Engine.
Yeah.
And my writing, I think it evolved from then to something more elaborate these days. I sometimes read these early articles and they are kind of cringeworthy, and and I feel like sometimes I should go back to them and write them again, just touch them up a little bit with more detail. But that's history, and someday, if I come back to these old games, then I can try to do it. But it was this one, Armed Formation F or F Formation.
That's crazy that you remember.
Armed Formation F and F Formation F Armed Formation. I don't remember.
But you remember, which is crazy because that's 2009, right? I mean, it's like it's clearly made an impact on you because you remember the first game, and you've done what people may not know. I have seen hundreds and hundreds of games cleared, and the way it's done on the site is the game is cleared, and then there's, like you said, there's some writing around the game, the experience, just kind of general kind of thoughts and some thoughts about difficulty, some thoughts about graphics and things like that. But I think it's amazing that you remember. But let me go a little deeper. before you started your blog spot, I noticed that you had put a video up on YouTube called the Shmup Report. This was like maybe a year before, roughly, and it had like, do you remember the games that were in that video? It's kind of a cool video. It's just like a collage of different shmups, and it's all the right audio. You know, the video itself is kind of like old school, you know, crusty, because it's like ostensibly real hardware that you've used to capture the video. So it's like, you know, whatever, 240 interlaced or whatever it ends up being. But like there was like all kinds of quite an interesting, very eclectic mix of games, I think, in that particular video. So I noticed that you had that before the blog. What was kind of like the story behind that?
Yes, that was the path that I took to find myself as a true shmupper. And I had this YouTube channel, but the YouTube channel wasn't geared towards gaming at all. And I created the YouTube channel to put up my short films, because I once aspired to be a filmmaker.
I saw those were your films then. I didn't know whose they were. That's I didn't click on them because I didn't, you know, I'm not like I'm not a big film guy, but I saw some stuff. It was like black and white, right?
Yeah, black and white. I went to the New York Film Academy in LA.
Oh my gosh.
2004, and it was a filmmaking short course, and we had to make like 3 or 4 short films, 16 millimeter, black and white.
Wow.
But anyway, that was the reason why I created the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
but
that was
then,
like your...
Yeah, when I started to build up my collection in 2007, it was totally out of the blue, and the collection started increasing in numbers, and by that time, games weren't as expensive as they are today. They were really cheap, actually, and my collection increased like that in a snap, and all these games coming in, and I was playing everything. But there came a point where, by that time, I really enjoyed playing shmups more than anything else. A little bit of fighting games here, racers there, but shmups were the backbone of my gaming routine. And then I started creating these videos. They were 10-minute videos, because by that time YouTube only allowed 10-minute videos. And for those who have YouTube,
that's right.
For this long, we couldn't upload videos that were longer than 10 minutes. So for every shmup that I played, not really 1cc, because the 1cc mindset came later. I recorded short videos, short clips, and then blended them in these 10-minute videos so that I could keep track of what I was playing. I think I did 4 or 5 of these videos. But by the time I made the last one, that's when I decided to start writing the blog, and started to keep my personal track of achievements in the shmup genre.
Yeah,
and, if you go back to these videos, these short videos, you see that some of the games in there I don't even consider shmups anymore. Like some simulating type games.
You're actually preempting my next question. So we have a mental mind meld right now, because I didn't send you this question before the interview, but I was going to ask you, what do you consider a shmup? Because there's stuff in there with, like, you know, and I don't even know if it's important. That's probably a whole topic of a whole video of like classifying games or classifying retro games and all that kind of stuff. But you know, I know that nowadays when you think about, like, in shmup discords or general shmup discourse, when you have like either non-auto scrolling games or games with physics, for example, you know, like where there's like some kind of physics model.
Gravity shmups.
Yeah.
I love these games, man. I love gravity shmups.
That's cool. You consider that a shmup? So give me some examples of things you consider shmups, and I think you mentioned some that maybe you don't consider shmups, like, so other people can understand where you're at with this.
No. Besides being a shmupper, I am a collector, and you can see here behind me, those are the PC Engine ones, Neo Geo, FM Towns, and Mega Drive over there. And I decided to collect only shmups at one point in time, so I sold all my other games, all of them. I just kept a few classics like Need for Speed Underground, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. These games I used to play a lot. And,
hell yeah.
But everything else went away to fellow collectors around the country, some of them abroad. But I needed to draw a line for what a shmup actually is. I wanted to buy them all. If I had a console, I wanted to have all the shmups available for that console. But let's take, for example, the NES. The NES has dozens of shmups. And,
yeah,
there
absolutely.
are some of them that you have to consider if they are actually shmups to include them in the collection. So very early on, I decided to draw this line. And back then, I chose not to collect games that didn't have auto-scrolling. And any type of simulator type games where you couldn't see your avatar on screen. I always say this to my friends because I
first
consider
person versus third person.
Yes,
That's what you kind of mean.
Yes, I consider Space Harrier to be a shmup because I can see the character in the screen. The character moves around and shoots. But Afterburner 3, I don't consider Afterburner 3 to be a shmup because it's entirely inside the cockpit. So you don't have that feeling that you are actually dodging bullets. It's the same as with any other type of simulating flying game. I totally disregard these games as shmups. And that's why I keep some rail shooters in my collection. I like some rail shooters very much, like Space Harrier, for example, Galaxy Force, and all of them. And you just mentioned gravity shooters.
Yeah,
I am very fond of gravity shooters as well. I had like an epiphany when I tried that NES Solar Jetman. Solar
Jetman's fantastic.
On the NES. It's crazy. It's made by the same guys who made Battletoads.
Yep.
When I knew about that, I knew I had to play this game. And Subterranea on the Mega Drive. And recently I was playing this game on the PS4 that's called Terra Lander. It's amazing. I have a soft spot for these games. I consider them shmups, but the whole community does not consider that.
That's your exception. That's your one exception where you're like, I get it, but I'm keeping them. Fuck it.
These are my guilty pleasures. That's why. But I had to draw the line, and I regret some of the decisions that I made back then. Like I didn't buy Pocky and Rocky.
I was just playing that game literally yesterday on stream, and I was thinking to myself, should I stream this? Is this a shmup?
Yeah, it is. Today I think it is because you have Commando, you have Mercs, and you have Mamoru-kun and Kiki Kai. Those are multi-directional arena shmups.
Shock Troopers for Neo Geo.
Shock Troopers, yes. They are shooters. They are shmups. You shoot things, you blow up things. And I didn't do it back then, and now I want to have Pocky and Rock in my collection, and it's impossible. It's impossible to have the original game in the collection today. So I'm probably going to get myself an EverDrive in the...
That's really interesting that you say that, because I think like my journey kind of parallels yours in a lot of ways. But like, you know, when I've only been playing for about a year and a half or so, but even before that I started to get into retro games. I got a Mister. I wanted things to be like kind of like how I remember them, you know, so like good input lag, good responsiveness, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of retro games, I tried to play them and I was like, this is too hard, or it's just so frustrating to play. Like, there's no rules, you know, you have to really like a platformer, like the jumping just doesn't feel as good as it does nowadays. Like maybe there's a strict jump or like very harsh skill sets that I didn't really have. But then when I started to play shmups, I was like, wait a minute, these kind of hold up. Like there's almost like a commonly held rule set across them to some extent. Like the skills are transferring. And so when I started to build my list of Mister games, I started to be like, well, I'm just gonna separate the shmups. And I started to like go through all the systems and go like, what is a shmup? What goes in the shmup folder? You know, what makes sense from a, you know, because to me, I started to like revere these games as like, yes, they're hard, but there's like a surmountability, there's a simplicity to it, you know. We talked about some gravity shmups, but like if you put those aside, on a regular shmup, you hit left, you're gonna probably move left, you're gonna fire, you're gonna shoot at some things. Usually, stuff comes at you from one direction, right? Versus like if you're playing like a Ninja Gaiden or a Castlevania and you start going forward and then a bat hits you in the back of the head. That does happen in shmups, and I hate it when it happens in shmups. But it's like generally speaking, there seem to be some rule sets, and they just seem to be more engaging to me, and felt like there was less overhead necessary to get into the situation. So like I started collecting, you know. I think the modern way of collecting is you're collecting games, or you're curating a list of games to try to like beat, to try to like get that 1cc or whatever. So I know a lot of new players start to like, oh, what's gonna be like, what are gonna be the shmups I'm gonna play? And so I think there's like this interesting parallel to like true collecting, like real hardware, actual games, which it seems like you've definitely been into. You definitely talked about it. And then there's like this new terms of like, well, there's emulators, there's ROMs, these games are very accessible. Trying to get, you know, for me to try to get a Saturn to work on an HDMI, like one, I don't have a CRT. I'm probably not going to go out and get a CRT. I mean, I could, but in most places, or a lot of places in the city, like even having a CRT is so much space. Like it's very difficult to even manage having like, you know, space for a true cathode array. Like a lot of people's screens are like pushed back. In this room, there's like no space. I have like many screens, but they're LCD screens. To get a Saturn, to get a copy of, you know, a game I want to play on Saturn, and all that stuff would cost me well over $1,500 with an ODE and like the gear and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I'm curious what you think about like the difference between, and a lot of people talk about it, like collecting games as a hobby to collect them, and then collecting games for a shmupper to actually play and try to like clear or 1cc or score them. Like, do you think there's a difference? Do you think there's some kind of connection between the two?
I think there is. Back then it was a lot easier to collect and play, and we already talked about this briefly, but it's impossible to keep a retro gaming collection these days. It's impossible to go out of the blue and say I want to build a shmup collection for the Saturn, because if you're going to purchase Radiant Silvergun, it's going to make you donate a kidney or something, because it's so expensive these days. And there are even people making reproductions of these expensive games that are pretty much the same product, bar the original status, of course. But these days, all the resources that we have, having these games available in digital form, in whatever platform that you can get them, in the PCs, emulating, and it's a whole different world from the one that I come from, and the world where I started from, which was collecting. I decided to be a collector more than a decade ago. But slowly I drifted into a player. Of course, we all collect to play. I mean, I collected games to play. It gives me pleasure to get the cartridge out of the shelf, put it in the console, and start it up and start my CRT. There's a vertical CRT over there for
I see that. You got a little tate action going. That's beautiful. And then there's your Yoko.
29-inch over there.
Ah,
yes. And,
beautiful.
It's something that's unparalleled these days. The feeling that you get as a collector to be able to play these games in real hardware. However, I do understand that it's impossible for people starting out today to have this. And in that sense, I was very lucky. We who surfed this era of collecting between the 2000s and until 2012 or 13, we were lucky. And I used to have my gripes against digital media. Not today anymore. At least I try not to. But whenever I have the chance, I try to get the games in physical form. Because as a father, now I am a father, and I want my kids to have these games to play when they are older. I don't even know if they are going to play them, if they are going to like them. But I hope as a father, I hope. And I don't see myself letting go of my collection at this point in time. People ask me, are you going to sell your games? Are you going to buy an EverDrive? Please sell me your Panorama copy. No, I won't. Yeah, no, please sell me your Blazing Star. When my wife saw the price of a Blazing Star cartridge on eBay, she went nuts. Her eyes were glowing like diamonds, and it's crazy the prices that these games fetch these days. So I do think that the future of gaming in general in shmups is in digital form, and pretty soon we won't have any discs or media anymore. I'm going to be even an older dinosaur that I am right now. I've become a dinosaur in some ways.
I don't know about that. I think you know. I want to like comment on something you said about your kids being able to inherit your collection. I think it's super interesting and important, you know, because I think having a physical games or having a system that doesn't need like online, you know, you don't have to like go through all of the like hoops just to like plug it in and play it. That piece of it's obviously super important. So when you're passing on to someone, you're not passing a subscription or some liability to them. You're passing like an actual asset, something they can like just hold on to and look at or whatever. But I recall seeing a story many years ago about a young man who his father had passed away, you know, many years ago, and he had a copy. I don't remember the game, but I think it was like a rally game or a racing game or some sort. He had a copy of a racing game that him and his dad used to play, or his dad used to play a lot, and he spent several weeks trying to race his dad's Ghost. You know, around the track, and like he could see different things that his dad was doing in terms of tendencies to steer in certain places, tendencies to brake in certain places, and it was like he could almost play with him again. And you know, even though he ended up beating that time, it was almost like a really cool way for him to like experience his dad's childhood in like a really interesting way. I think like obviously it's not going to be the same for every retro game, but having a high score on one of those cartridges, if they do have memory. I mean, obviously NES, you're not going to have any memory, but like maybe a later game with a memory card, maybe you have some high scores, maybe you have some replays. You kind of can live on through some of that in like some really cool ways. If you have family that really care about you, they can like see like, holy crap, look at this Edward replay. Well, he is a madman. What is he doing in this scoring? This is like a 70 million score or whatever,
yeah,
you know?
He's got lucky there, yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's a really cool angle on collecting that I haven't heard, right? Because as you know, a lot of people do collect, they trade, they go, I don't know if this is worth $700 to me. Maybe they have like other, you know, more pressing life issues, and they get rid of their collections because they have to, because it's like that's just life. But you know, I think the way you put it makes sense. I know the digital is going to be important. I do think though, like vinyl is coming back, and I think like the Nintendo Switch and a couple other consoles, there have been a lot of publishers who are trying to bring like, you know, physical copies of games. This is my Japanese copy of the new Kiki Kaikai game, actually.
Yeah,
that
I'm waiting for mine on the PS4.
You're waiting for yours to come in. Yeah, I got mine, and I think, you know, it's I don't do physicals. I haven't done physical games. My physical shelf is like probably like one corner of your shelf is like I could put all my physical games, because I really only keep the ones, or buy the ones, I guess. I only buy the ones that really like mean something to me, you know, they're really special. Like I want to hold the copy. Sometimes I'll double dip, but I do think like with Nintendo trying to keep cartridges alive and stuff like that, it's kind of possible. You know, do you think it's possible that like it comes back around and, you know, physical becomes, because I think, you know, it's sort of turning into that now to me, in terms of like vinyl, physical video games, other physical goods, not because the game is easier to be physical or things like that, but because people are starting to appreciate having things that are non-digital, because everything is becoming digital. So the value of non-digital goods, there's a mystique around them. There seems to be this kind of like, there's like a feeling around them that like once people get into it, I feel like they sort of get stuck, and they're like, oh, I want everything to be physical. Like this is so much different than logging onto my computer and seeing like 400 tiles of something.
Exactly. And there's been this resurgence of older games and publishers that are bringing digital games to physical form, like strictly limited games, limited run games, and Red Art games. In terms of shmups, these are the companies that I'm most familiar with, because they have been releasing games for the PlayStation 4, for the Nintendo Switch for a few years now. And you would never imagine having some of these games in physical form. For me, it's amazing, because as a collector, that's exactly what you said. Some of the games we want to have some of these games close to us in physical format. And I would never have imagined a few years ago that this would be happening with the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 3 was a disappointment for me. And by that time, I was really naive when the PS3 came out. I bought the PS3 in the hopes that Gradius 6 would be released for the PS3.
The elusive.
Yeah, because I loved Gradius V so much.
But instead, you got the 40-hour motion picture event Metal Gear Solid 4, and you had to watch most of it and play a tiny part of it.
And I bought the PS3 on launch. I had the fat PS3, and it died on me.
Oh no!
Years later. It's the only console that died here.
Wow.
In my house, the PS3. And then I lost Afterburner Climax, which I loved.
Aww.
And I couldn't purchase Afterburner Climax and on the Xbox 360 in time because Sega lost the rights for the Jets.
Oh no! I wonder if I have that one. Oh no! I like Climax.
It's an amazing game.
It's good.
Climax
It's good.
It's an amazing game. Well, in a sense, PS3 was a disappointment, and I never thought the PS4 would have so many physical shmups coming out for it. Not only the small ones, but you have Dangon Feveron and other games by Cave coming out. We are still waiting for Sorcerer Striker to come out in physical form. Everybody wants it. I don't know why it's taking so long.
I'll get it. I don't want to create a Japanese PSN account. I don't want to do all that. I'm just not into. There's some limits, to where I'm willing to go. I would rather, like you said, I would rather have like this. If this was like a Japanese eShop thing, I wouldn't have done it. But because I can have it in my hand, it's cool. There's Japanese on it. It's like it's got this neat. I can stare at it and go, look, I'm a nerd. Like there's something cool about it. But no, that's interesting, and I agree with you on the sort of future of the genre. But like coming back to your blog and everything that's going on there. I saw it's so funny on your very first. I think it was like one of your very first two posts. It was either Armed Formation F or was your very first post where you decided I am gonna do a blog, and you actually like said, hey, this is my first post. I'm gonna do a blog. I think it's really important. You said some interesting things about the genre. You said some interesting things about like modern games. You're like, modern games are not working for me. I love shmups now. I'm a shmupper now, and I think it's like something that like it just happens, right? When it happens to you, you have to just accept it. You have to just accept the fact I'm a shmupper now. I'm gonna be one of those guys. You're gonna try to give me some long game with drawn out cutscenes, and it's very unlikely that I want to play it because at this point I want to be hit with the first bullet and move on. But did you think that your blog would have this kind of legs? Because the first post on one of those, on one of your posts, the first comment actually on one of your posts is from 2020, 11 years after you posted it. And a lot of people, they start these projects, they go, no one's watching, and they stop, right? After like 2 or 3 4 months. But like your blog is still going. You were posting yesterday, or not yesterday, but a few days ago. By the way, condolences on your PSP. That looks really gnarly. I saw some real gnarly stuff happening with that headphone jack. I'm glad that it's still working, but playing shmups on the go is part of being a shmupper. You can't, it's sort of like the other you have all your real biological kids, and then you have your shmups right next to them. So it's cool that you got to take that on the go, but did you think your blog was going to still be relevant? Like, what is it now? 13 years later?
I never thought it would be that relevant. As you say, I do think that I have some faithful readers. I have made very good friendships ever since I started the blog, because of the blog and because of shmups in general. But I don't know if you are a writer, because I am a writer at heart, and writers, they write for themselves most of the times. And if you write for others, you eventually lose the stamina and the will to write. So if you write for yourself, and you're self-motivated to write. And then that's why I write for myself.
Do you think that applies to shmups too? Like, you think that's like it's a self, like it's like, because I think once, for me especially, sometimes like I'll get a game and I'll feel compelled to once CC it. Famously quoted, I'm gonna quote you again because it's all about you. Your famous quote is, no beatable shmup, one that has an ending, is so bad that it doesn't deserve to be 1cc'd at least once. That is a direct quote from your shmup list. And so, I don't know if I feel that as strongly as you about that, but I know that if I paid $70 for an M2 port or something like that, and it's like of one game, it's like I feel very compelled to push myself to 1cc, even if maybe I'm not enjoying the game that much. And I'm part of it's also like I feel like once I started putting videos of 1cc's up, it's like I feel like I have to clear a game every couple of weeks or every 2 or 3 weeks, because I just feel like I need to keep moving my skills forward, keep getting better, and keep keep the log going. Was that the same with your 1cc log, or did you feel like that was, like you said, more about writing articles, and the shmupping was just happening anyways on the background, and this just happened to be connected?
Yeah, you cut up just a few seconds in your last sentence, but actually, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can absolutely repeat it. No problem. The
connection just glitched.
Were you writing to write, and then the shmups were just happening on the background, or did you feel compelled to 1cc something so you can add it to the blog, add it to the list?
No, it was all natural. Of course, if I achieved a new 1cc, I would write about it. By that time, I had no kids. I had extra time, and there were months where I would 1cc 8 shmups. Of course, they were mostly console shmups. They are easier than arcade shmups. We all know that.
Not so sure on that one. You're probably right. It
gave me great pleasure. Always gave me great pleasure to play these games and see them to the end on one credit. And this is a realization that gamers have sometime in their gaming life, that it might change their mindset and the way they view video games, because it's you play a game like Gigawing that has unlimited continues from beginning to end. You use 20 continues, and then you say the game is over. It doesn't have any value for me. But once you learn that if you complete the game with the 3 lives that the game gives you, it's a completely different kind of achievement, and the feeling that you have from beating such a hard game as Gigawing on credit. It's something that you can rarely find in any other genre.
Yeah.
Of course, if you beat Castlevania or Ghosts and Ghosts, if one credit is just as amazing in itself as beating a hard shmup. But the structure of shmups, and you mentioned it a few minutes earlier, they are very simple games at their heart, because the rules are simple, and mostly you can grab a shmup, learn the rules in 5 to 10 minutes, and have fun afterwards. In some platformers, you need to learn lots of things, you need to explore. In RPGs, you need to at least 2 or 3 days to actually start learning the game to enjoy it. And that's not the case with shmups. Of course, there are those shmups that are a little bit more complicated, like you get Chaos Field. People say that Chaos Field is complicated to learn because of so many inputs.
Chaos Field.
Radiant Silvergun. You use all the buttons in Radiant Silvergun.
Yeah, 7-button game. Well, really?
Yeah.
3-button game or 7-button game, just depends.
Yes, of course. But most shmups you use 3 buttons max. So they are pretty simple to pick up and play, but really hard to master, the hardest ones. And that's one of the things that attract people to shmups once they realize the importance of playing the game without continuing. And according to what the developers said as your main goal and your main challenge in the game itself.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned something interesting there, and I want to touch on it, which is you mentioned about the 3 buttons. And so a couple of things that kind of occur to me, one, console shmups. Well, actually, you mentioned so many things that I'd love to dig into all of them if we had 50 hours. But I do agree, it's interesting that some console shmups give you a credit limit. So you can almost it's not really, it's developer set to some extent. Maybe you get 5 credits or 6 credits. So it still kind of limits you a little bit. So you still have to learn. At some point, you still have to learn. So I think that's interesting. But the second thing I think in terms of console shmups is that when you talk about 3 buttons and various control schemes, I feel like a lot or many console shmups, at least getting 16-bit and further, they have auto fire. or some kind of rapid fire equivalent. And I know like with arcade shmups, a lot of people apply auto fire circuits and things like that. And like the justification that I've heard is that in Japan, auto fire circuits were the norm. Like people applied them to the cabinets, you know, for like Gradius or Darius, you know, Darius, as it were, games, because it's just like, you know, you had like the auto fire dial. And so I know now like the emulating community, like almost everybody uses some kind of 30 hertz, 10 hertz. You know, the M2 ports have auto fire in them. What's like your take on, you know, really two things? One, just controls in general, and two, like auto fire. Like as a console shmupper primarily, right? It feels like most, I mean, I'm looking at your list of hundreds of games you have here, and they're separated by, you know, PC, FM Towns, you know, Mega Drive, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, it dawns on me, these are console shmups or console ports of arcade shmups. And you know, auto fire on console shmups, there are some that don't have auto fire like inbuilt into the game, but like what's your sort of take on auto fire and controls and things like that?
I think auto fire is life. I can imagine
Quote it. That's it. Quote it. This podcast is over.
Mashing buttons is not my way of having fun, man.
You heard him. You heard him.
I don't mash buttons. Some shmups,
they
have some sort of semi-auto fire where you just tap, and you have auto fire.
Chorensha.
In
I think
other
some.
ones,
Yeah.
I bought a turbo controller for the Mega Drive just to play one game. And this game is called Battle Squadron. Battle Squadron does not have any sort of auto fire, and it's impossible to play that game without auto fire. So I
the devs had auto.
Yes. I tested 3 controllers until I found the one that I was comfortable with, and then I beat the game. It's impossible without auto fire. I have a very good PS2 pad, a turbo pad that I use in both for the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 1 because the analog works with the PS1. And I use it also on the Neo Geo games with an adapter. And I feel very lucky to have bought 3 units of the same controller to use if the current one dies. And
I've
it's
done
not
that.
manufactured anymore. It's not made anymore.
Wow.
So that's the importance I give to auto fire.
I love it.
And as for controllers,
yeah, that's where I was
because
going.
you mentioned controllers, controlling functions, I like D-pads. I'm not fond of arcade type controllers. I don't feel comfortable playing with them. I always feel that my thumb drifts when I'm using the arcade controller, and after a while my performance starts degrading.
Interesting.
So I am a pad player. Also keyboards. I don't use keyboards.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't consider. I wouldn't have expected you to somehow like start sipping the keyboard Kool-Aid. It is fascinating, you know, as a person, you know, just so you know a little bit of my background. Like I grew up, never had consoles. My parents were computer engineers, so I would get the hand-me-down computer that was like 5 years older than the one that they had. So like my first system was like a 486, right? In the days of Pentium, of course. So like I had a 486, 66 megahertz, so not bad, you know. I'm like running like Tomb Raider and stuff, you know, as a kid. And I got used to using keyboards to play like Street Fighter 2 for DOS, for example, or you know, and stuff like that, you know. But that's like as a child, you know, as a child, you know. And then eventually consoles became kind of big. I was playing them at friends' houses and stuff, you know, Super Nintendo, and I got a little bit used to that. Then eventually, when I was in college, I decided I want to play fighting games, and I got an arcade stick because I felt like, and that's because I was on the Xbox 360, and I just don't like that D-pad at all, or at least for me, it wasn't working. And so, and I saw people, you know, at the locals with arcade sticks, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and that took me several. So like now, when it comes to shmups, if you look on my channel, I've beaten them with the keyboard. Well, easier ones. I've beaten them with the keyboard, with all kinds of controllers: SNES pad, TurboGrafx pad, Saturn pad, arcade stick. I do tend to use arcade stick, and it's not because I think it's a good control scheme. I actually don't think arcade sticks are that nice in terms of like the feel of them. I think they feel more authentic and fun because I do remember arcades growing up, and I do remember mashing, and I do remember all that kind of stuff. So it's more about the feeling of playing than the performance. And funnily enough, I watch keyboard players, and I see like the precision, the little taps that you can get, like the micro taps, or even stick players who are just have really fast sticks and really short throws, and what they're able to do from a performance perspective is clearly better than I think what what I could probably do on a particular pad or particular stick. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I'm not going for world records, but it's kind of fascinating, to see like a full-on pad player. Like, you grew up on consoles, you're a console guy, you're not gonna jump on keyboards anytime soon, and it sounds like arcade sticks are just more of a novelty for you. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, I beat some games with arcade sticks, but not really many. And it's as you mentioned, it's fascinating to see what guys like Prometheus does with Dodonpachi on a keyboard. It's amazing.
Yeah, sure.
That's it. And regarding D-pads, you mentioned that you don't like the Xbox D-pad. I love the Xbox D-pad.
Really? The original 360 D-pad. It is a circle pad, but I feel like for me feel like there's something about it that just feels too up, on an axis. Yeah, that one. Yeah, I can't seem to get like, if I get left, sometimes I get down left. If I go left, sometimes I get up left. I can't seem to get cardinal directions to work all the time, and so I'll get diagonals on that pad quite a lot. Like, I feel like it's difficult for me to pick a direction.
Yeah, but it depends. For the PlayStation controllers, I prefer to use the analog.
Oh, I hate that D-pad. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like, everybody knows this about me, who's on Discord and stuff. The PS4 controller that a lot of people use, I think, on PC and stuff to play console games and stuff like that, I absolutely hate that controller. Like, I don't mind the analog sticks, they're okay. I don't mind the buttons, and the triggers are bad. Like, I don't like the squeezy triggers. Like the Dreamcast triggers are squeezy, but they're not bad. You don't feel a loss of responsiveness, even though they are triggers. But the D-pad, the split D-pads, and of course the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con, it's just the Joy-Con is something else. That's another. So I ended up buying, like, I have these controllers that I have like 5 or 6 of these. I have wired and wireless ones. They're Saturn pads. And so they made by Retrobit.
The best controller ever made, man.
Dude, these are not. I wouldn't say they are 1-to-1 with the Saturn. I think that the D-pad is 1-to-1. The buttons are a little bit suspect, especially the triggers. And I know how it's built because I've taken the thing apart. But the D-pad is just so fast, so good, so precise. And it's really important part of shmupping. Half the time you're holding a button and using really mostly the directions. So I think that's super interesting. Do you think, like, the future of, like, world records and, like, because I know recently I saw a video, or I've seen a couple videos that people do play on Twitch with sticks and everything, but I do feel like it's pushing so closer to, like, the keyboard players. Do you think, like, there's gonna be this kind of, like, future world records are, like, all keyboard players, or, like, they're gonna take over or anything like that with, basically what you mentioned with Prometheus and stuff?
It depends. Depends on the person. I've seen people play very well with all sorts of inputs, and I've been out of the scene for a few years now, and I haven't been in the Shmups forum that much. Really. I've only browsed it a few times to check a few records and high scores. I don't post there anymore. So I haven't been following the great players and their scores. I remember Jimers.
Yes.
And
yes.
Of course, Prometheus and Gus, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And I used to watch them play back then, a few years back. But ever since my baby girl came to the family, I restricted myself a lot in the YouTube communities, and I haven't been following the scene as I should, the high scoring scene. But it's interesting that you mentioned that keyboards seem to be becoming the norm as far as high scoring goes.
I don't know about, maybe it's not, like, maybe not fully world record level, but I see keyboard players do things with a lot of ease. Like, even younger players, certainly, because I think a couple things. One, and it's kind of, this is a topic wrapped into itself, because there's a lot going on here in this topic, and we should, unpack it a little bit. Like, first is emulation, right? It would be very easy to say that most people trying to get into the genre today are doing some form of emulated, just to get understanding of, like, or maybe they have, like, a TurboGrafx Mini, but something like that. But I think, like, emulation is just a part of it now, right? And so obviously you can have a controller hooked up, but if you're just like a college student with a laptop and you want to try a shmup, you might just try it on keyboard. And I just feel like some of these younger players, I mean, what they're doing, the precision that they have in their movements is insane. I mean, if you know a shot is aimed, right? If you know a shot is aimed and you know the precise amount that you have to tap to not worry about that aimed shot, they are taking exactly that many pixels with the keyboard, and it's a tap, 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 tap across the board. If you have 1,000 aimed bullets, they will give up as little space as possible, and the precision of not having to go back and forth from a stick standpoint to like go left, go right, being able to change directions immediately, right? You're holding left and you hit right, you let go of left, there's no lag, there's no delay. So there's a precision there, both for tapping, i.e. not giving up space strategically, right? Because Shmups are a resource, it's a genre about resources, right? And the resource is space. It's very similar to fighting games. And people don't realize, you start playing a fighting game, immediately you start walking backwards, you are giving up resources. Don't do that. You're gonna corner yourself. Same thing with Shmups. If you get in a Shmup and you see an enemy on the left side of the screen and you decide, I'm gonna go all the way to the left side of the screen to shoot this enemy down, you better be damn sure you have a way to get back over. Because especially if you're playing an old toe plan shmup where your hitbox is the size of Jupiter, because you're just gonna get hit on the way back over. So I just think it's like I'm watching these keyboard players and it's amazing what they can do and the speed at which they grasp games, and because they don't have to, like between me and you. If I'm playing a SNES game, I'm using my SNES controller because it's about authenticity more than scores for me. And I think for you, you're playing on real hardware, so you're limited to your controllers, right, to some extent. So you are not like, you don't have like a ritual where it's like if you're a keyboard emulator player and you're just using keyboard for everything, you're going to get pretty damn good at those 4 keys,
Yeah, I think if you start to play in keyboards and you don't have much access to other types of inputs, it's just natural that you're going to get good with keyboards. That's natural in life. When we started to play video games, all we had was that tiny controller for an Atari or for a Master System and NES, and that's all we had, and we had to get good with these controllers. With whatever inputs we had. And if these new players are starting to rise up in the high scoring ranks with keyboards, it's just natural. They are going to take that path. And as you mentioned, keyboards are more precise in essence than what controllers offer in terms of precision and lag and D-pads and buttons and the amount of taps that you need to apply to a keyboard button. It must feel natural. Not for me, but
oh yeah, me either.
yeah, of course, lots of people. There are people who like to play with Atari sticks. I have friends that don't really like to use D-pads. Old timers, you see.
So let's talk about Atari, because was that your first system, the 2600, or rather, like, because I know you have a lot of some old systems like FM Towns, Atari on your log of games, and you have like, I don't know, 100 Atari, maybe not 100, maybe like 30 Atari 2600 games that are shmups here, like
just a few ones.
Yeah, was there like any Atari 2600 shmups you'd want to mention that maybe still hold up today?
Oh well, I started with the 2600. It was my first console. It was actually a clone in Brazil, built by CCE, called Super Game 1000, and we only had Pac-Man to play. I remember playing Pac-Man to no end, hours after hours, when I was a kid. But it holds a special place in my heart because of nostalgia, the Atari. But I don't really play it anymore these days. Only when friends come over and they want to see it running, a real Atari running, I hook it up and let them play with the original controllers. But I don't really play it. Sometimes when I have a group of friends and we play some weekly contests, sometimes they choose an Atari game, and then I am very, very eager to take out the cartridge, turn on the system, and play it in real hardware. But for me, at that time, playing stuff like River Raid, Demon Attack, and Planet Patrol, these are the ones that I think I remember most fondly. They are shmups, in essence, and the Atari 2600 has many of them. very simple shmups because we know the 2600 is very limited, and it was my first console, and that's why I keep just a small amount of games in my collection for nostalgia's sake. But don't play it that much. Don't play the system that much anymore.
Yeah, it seems a little outdated. It's going to probably be difficult for someone who's used to like Mushihimesama to go back and play Planet Control. But yeah, very popular game nowadays. Especially with the ports coming out now with Livewire putting out the 360 ports again on Switch and stuff like that. Steam. Let me ask you this question.
You like Mushi? You like Mushi?
You don't want to ask me if I like Mushi.
Yeah,
I don't.
You just brought up Mushi. Blue.
It just I know I don't love Mushi. I think Mushihimesama is a good game. I think Mushihimesama is a popular game and it's got a great there's a lot to do there. I think the setting is a main reason why it's a draw because it's not spaceships, right? So it's very unique in terms of its setting. I think it's a very visible game. All the bullets are the same color. The visibility is really good. So I think novice modes and things like that of Mushi or Mushi OG are an interesting foray into shmups because the bullet speeds of Mushi is not the usual cave bullet speeds. I mean, it's right there on the edge. Maniac and stuff like that, maybe slower bullets, but on OG, it's almost getting into Total Plan level of bullet speeds that are just or OG Max and things like that. The issue that I have, I think, with Mushi is that once you get like you said before, if you want to get into a difficult game and keep playing a more difficult game and routing and getting deep into it, Mushi has a lot to offer. But for me personally, I feel like I would like more interesting ship types, more interesting more creative gameplay. I like more creative games. I think Mushi is more of a puzzle to be solved, and a lot of shmups are like this, But I think I'm looking for the spark, the magic, what's the interesting thing that you can do that's really neat? What's the hook? What's the gimmick? I love gimmicky games, And so once for me, I was done with Mushi Original, which was a nightmare for me to clear, a very difficult game for me. I tried to play a little bit of Maniac and went, nah, I've seen these stages before, and now this is just harder. There's more bullets, but I don't necessarily want to reroute this whole game with a new bullet patterns because it just didn't feel like there was an. So for example, if you compare that to Dodonpachi, I think Dodonpachi is okay. I think it's a very good game, but me playing Dodonpachi now with CL versus CS or a B ship, it turns into a pretty different game. It's not just routing. I mean, the game feels different. There's a feel difference to it, and you can do that in Mushi. Maybe you can pick M shot, W shot, S shot, but I think a lot of people gravitate towards it because it's very accessible. It's on Steam, right? It's not Dodonpachi, which makes it kind of neat. It's bugs, and that's cool. The graphics are amazing. There's so many modes. There's the customizability of the game is more closer to a Bat Rider or something like that than it is your typical cave shmup where you have one mode and you're done, right? With Dodonpachi, how many modes do you have? You have 1 all, 2 all. Pretty much that's it, right? There's no maniacs and maxes and things like that. So I think, it's one of those games that a lot of people talk about as it's like a rite of passage. Everyone has to clear Mushi 1.0 original at some point in their shmup career. It just has to happen. It's a requirement.
I wouldn't go that far. Not really clear. It's just that you mentioned Mushi. In Mushi Stage 5, it was a defining moment for me as a player. Because the moment I saw someone play Mushi Stage 5 in Maniac on YouTube, I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with the style of the bullets. And when I saw it, I knew that I would want to play as many bullet hells that I could by that time. And it was the reason why I started enjoying Danmaku more. It was a 2005, and I was playing lots of Mars Matrix, and Mars Matrix is another game that really opened my eyes back then. Mars Matrix and Mushi, and Mushi Stage 5, man, it's an amazing piece of
I agree.
Of shmup work and art and
totally.
The music, man, it's amazing, man.
I agree. I think Stage 4 and Stage 5 are amazing.
Yeah, but Stage 5 takes the cake for me.
Agreed.
And that's why I prefer the first Mushi over Mushihimesama Futari.
Yeah,
like the first
I know a lot of people say this, and I agree. I tend to agree with them. Is that they say that Futari is like Mushi Stage 5, but for a long period of time because there's so many cancels in all the stages.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Futari over Mushi because I feel like most of the time you are being riddled by bullets and waiting for that next cancel to show up and save your ass because it's you're like being walled and like, oh, I'm gonna wait a little bit. And I think the scoring system is I think also really nice because when you're supposed to be using shot and when you're supposed to be using laser, and that's like applying this like internal logic of yourself. You're like, do I want to risk scoring to be too slow or too fast for this section, or to have not firepower for this section? So the elegant nature of that game, I'm sure it's probably a different, I'm not probably, I know for a fact that Mushi Futari Maniac is different the way it scores from original, and I haven't played Maniac, but I think like Futari, to me, like Mushi Stage 1, after you play it so many times, it doesn't hold any value anymore. Mushi Stage 2, kind of the same. It's okay, but it doesn't hold a lot of value. Mushi Stage 3 is a bit of a nightmare. Always. It's okay. It's kind of frantic. I think the idea of it, the R-type idea of taking the battleship stage is fantastic, but I don't know that it fully executes on that. Then Mushi Stage 4 is beautiful and amazing, and the Beatles, all the stuff is just, and then Mushi Stage 5 is like, finally I get to enjoy this game. So for me, getting through the, like, first half of the game is like a chore, and the second half of the game is like, finally, Cave, you're letting me enjoy this game. So good. And for me, Futari, I can do that for the whole game, because even Stage 3, which is like nightmarish, has those cancels in places, and you can kind of get yourself out of trouble. Yeah. I like a more dynamic game than one where you have to save resources to the very end or try to save resources throughout the game. And I feel like Futari gives you more options to get yourself out of trouble and maybe like bypass scoring for survival. And actually, it brings me to the next topic. I'm curious. When you pick up a game, do you tend to go to scoring? Do you try to survive it first? Like, what's your scoring versus survival strategy for like a new game, or even like a game that you've heard of and you're digging into for the first time? Like, especially if you're trying to write for it for the blog or trying to get a 1cc, are you trying to get a survival 1cc at first, then you go to scoring, or like what's that approach look like for you?
At first, I try to play for survival. Survival is actually more important than scoring in the long run, of course, because if you don't survive, you can score.
Sure.
And but with very difficult games, there comes a point when you are practicing, where around when you are getting in a 5-stage game, for example, there comes a point when we're starting to get good at Stage 4. That's the point where I start to practice scoring in the first couple of levels. Because if I don't do that, by the time I get to Stage 5 and start to practice Stage 5, and then I go back to Stage 1, I start dying by peanuts. I start dying easily in Stage 1 because I know Stage 5 a lot more than I know Stage 1.
Yeah, sure.
So when I do that, I try to practice with scoring in mind for Stage 1. Let's take, for example, Dodonpachi DOJ.
Yeah, you just started that. I saw some notes on that on the blog.
Yeah, I cleared it, the white label on the PlayStation 2 after a few months of practice. But I did try to chain the first couple of levels completely, and it's not easy, at least for me.
No
for
kidding.
My skill level. And I'm about to begin Black Label on the 360, and with the BL ship. BL? Yes, the green one. BL, and it's completely different from A Expert. I had a hard time, but I got to Stage 5 already, but I need to get back to Stage 1 and 2 to practice again. It's just one example of my approach. Is that I always try to practice scoring as I'm reaching the end of the game during practice. I don't try to go full survival first and then scoring afterwards.
So let's break that down for like DOJ, right? So like you have it in your hand, like the actual specifics. You have it in your hand. You know it's going to be a difficult game. What's the first thing that you do? Do you credit feed the game? Do you, what's like the first thing that you do when you get that thing? Do you just focus on stage one? Like, do you work in piece parts, or do you try to like feed the game?
I hammer stage one until I get the full chain. That's what I did, and I intertwine practice sessions with real sessions. I go to MAME and I MAME stage one, stage two. And then on the third evening, when I had the time, I went to the PlayStation 2 and played the game, full credits, game over, start again for like 2 or 3 hours. And then after that, got back to MAME for practice. That's how I approach my games, my style of practicing these hard games. And there comes a point when it starts feeling more natural. I mean, the hard parts, the difficult parts, the boss patterns, some of the what seems to be complicated at first, then starts to open up, and you see the gaps more clearly, and what you thought was impossible a few years back or a few months back starts to become more feasible. You start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you start to believe that you can actually beat the game. And that's another factor, that's another aspect that makes Shmup so interesting for players who like a challenge in video games. And Dodonpachi, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did with DOJ.
What do you think about like newcomers coming to the genre in general who maybe aren't like best in class players from other genres? Like, I was never really that good of a gamer. Like, in the fighting game community, I was very low tier. I was good enough, but not amazing. I wasn't like a gold, platinum, or whatever. I was, good enough to like have fun, play a little bit. Win ratio of like 50% or less than that. Not like amazing. I didn't have an arcade 1cc background or a speedrunning background or any kind of competitive background, and I'm kind of finding myself here in Shmups just kind of dabbling, understanding, learning things, moving things along, kind of clearing maybe the easiest mode of a game, then moving on to the next game, maybe coming back if I feel like my skills have improved. That's kind of how I've approached it. I think, like, to me, the genre is sort of coming back. There's so many releases, new releases now. Even if you look at this year, there's like been, 10 Shmups released this year already or something like that. Compared, and full games. Some are remakes and stuff like that. But this Kiki Kaikai game is like 3 stages of the first game remade, but then like after that is like completely new game, new characters, all that stuff. And but for someone who's maybe like not hyper competitive, and who maybe doesn't have that drive to want to like be amazingly good at the game, but just wants to sort of enjoy these games, what's kind of your take on sort of like the newcomers coming into this who maybe are they want to explore the genre, they want to maybe get a little bit better, but they're not, they're kind of intimidated by some of the things that you and others are able to do because you put in hours and hours and tons of hours, tons of time and practice. They just don't know what shmups are. They're trying to come in and say, I don't even understand what's happening here, but I just maybe want to dabble and like pick a game. Do you have any advice for those folks, or like ways to approach the genre that maybe might be interesting, or if not, because you can always just say, no, I mean, they may bounce out, they have their interest, and you're not that interested in new players who maybe aren't going to try to go their 1cc route or the high scoring route.
I think that playing at your own pace is important. Don't rush. If you do not feel inclined to play these games, don't try. Wait for the right mindset. You have to want to play these games in order to let's say 1cc. And these are video games after all. They must be fun.
That's right.
And if a game isn't fun enough, just drop it. Go to the next one. And there was a time when I was really, really not into Psycho.
You too? Oh my God! It's everyone.
It's crazy. You're there, and then there comes that bullet burst, and then it fries you out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
And it took me some time to actually start enjoying Psycho, and I avoided it. But in time, I started to enjoy the little aspects that make a Psycho game. But Psycho games are not for starters, as an example. Let's say a newcomer playing Dragon Blaze. They're going to hate the genre. They can't do that. So try to play a more easygoing title, something that's enjoyable and also beautiful. One very good example is Gradius V. People ask me, where should I start? I always say, can you have Gradius V available for you to play? Try it.
Wow.
Just the first stage of Gradius V is amazing, an amazing example of horizontal shmup, of what a horizontal shmup should be like.
Wow.
And if you are starting in the genre, pick up like 4 to 5 games, dedicate yourself to one of them. And some people are actually surprised by how good they are at dodging bullets. And yes, I've seen a few friends of mine say, this is nice, I can dodge, I can kill the boss, I'm in the 3rd stage already. But what people often think when they come to the genre, they sometimes take for granted the amount of effort it takes to clear a game like Doronpachi. You can't be that good really fast. Of course, some people are more gifted than others. It's just natural for some people to dodge. And the most basic aspect of shmups is that you need to dodge bullets. That's the essence of a shmup. Of course, around the act of dodging bullets, there are also more aspects that need to be considered in today's shmups. Like, you need to consider bullet canceling. You need to consider crowd control. There are enemies that you need to kill first in order not to get overwhelmed. But these are things that players only learn in time. They can't learn it like that in a snap. You start with the basics. You need to dodge. And the bullet's coming. Dodge, move right, move left. Don't move too much. Don't move too much. Just straight, one touch at a time. Just tap, 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 tap. I tell a few friends sometimes, I can't dodge these bullets. They're coming too fast. And I say, start on the left. Tap, 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 tap. Boom, the boss is gone.
Some basic bullet hurting. Yeah.
Yes. These are things that people will learn if they start playing more approachable shmups. Don't start with Dragon Blaze. If you are a starter, don't go with DOJ. Just pick up like Sorcerer Striker is a very friendly game and a very nice game to start with. I thought it would be harder when I tried it. It was the last tournament that I was in, La Caliche Cup. I remember, I think it was the 2nd round of La Caliche Cup, and that's what I remember most about it. These occasions are when we learn about new shmups, and I never played Sorcerer Striker by that time, Mahou Daisakuzen. I don't know how you pronounce that name, Mahou Daisakuzen.
Something like that.
Sorcerer Striker. Yeah, something like that. I was really, really amazed by the quality of that game, and I think it's really good for beginners, as well as some other games like Eschatos.
Sure.
I was playing Eschatos last month, and I think Eschatos is a point for beginners as well, because of the easy, normal, and hard difficulties, as well as the original and advanced modes. They all play differently, and you also have Judgment Silver Sword in the same package. It's an amazing entry point for people who want to start playing shmups.
Yeah, those MKai games are something else. What do you think about novice modes? Because like you said, Dragon Blaze, right? And I agree with you, by the way. But I do have a Dragon Blaze 1-all on my channel, and the only reason I have it is because I played on Monkey, and I was just trying to do all the tech shots because the tech shots are so cool to me. The concept of being able to dodge, pick your moment, and then one-shot the boss, to me, I was like, oh, this is incredible. I want to do, like, this is a cool thing. Like, you know, it's different. You know, it's not the same as, oh, you're whittling down their health bar, they're changing faces. Like, we do that. We've done that 1 trillion times. In this case, it's, if you want to take a risk, you know, get them to a specific point, get close enough, maybe learn it. You might have to memorize how it works, but get in there. They show their weak spot. You hit the button, you launch your dragon in there, boom, dead, done, over. All the bullets disappear. And I just thought, like, wow, what a cool way to just kind of style on a boss, you know? Like, yes, there's some scoring implications and stuff. That's fine. But and I ended up doing it on Monkey because, like you said, I'm new. I'm not going to play Dragon Blaze in arcade. It's insane. Like, it's the bullets are crazy fast, you know, so fast. And so, what do you think about like lowering the difficulty or like novice modes and things like that, you know, for games like that? Because I agree with you, by the way, Dragon Blaze, not my first pick on the arcade, but maybe on Monkey or Child, maybe it's a little bit. Or do you think that's like taking away the psycho-ness of the game in a way where you're not even really playing Dragon Blaze and it's better off playing like maybe SDOJ Novice or something like that?
I'll be honest with you.
Be honest with us. We want the honesty. We need the truth, Edward.
I don't like these easier settings.
Okay.
In my video games, I avoid them at all costs.
Okay.
At least normal. Normal or higher. And of course, the easier settings, if you are having trouble with a particular part of the game, they're nice for training purposes. But I don't remember when I actually played these games in any of these lower, very, very low difficulties. No, I don't. I don't think I've ever played any Psycho game in a setting that was below 5, which for console standards it's 5, and it starts on normal, but you have to increase it to 5 to have the arcade setting for, let's say, Sokyu Gurentai. Mm-hmm. If you play on normal, you are not playing the arcade version of the game.
That game's hard enough, Edward. You're that game's hard enough, man.
Just to have an idea, I was playing Parodius on the MSX collection on the Saturn ones, but it's all in Japanese. Have you seen it before? Everything's in Japanese. Even
I've seen it.
The menus, the opening menus is in Japanese.
Yeah,
and then I just clicked the start, and then I played the game Parodius on the MSX, and I looped the game, and I thought, wow, okay, another achievement for me.
Yeah.
And then I learned that I was playing in the easy setting.
Yeah.
In the easy setting. It's just got easy and hard. And then I was really frustrated because when I tried to play it in hard, it was just impossible.
Yeah.
Parodius, MSX Parodius on hard.
Oh, yeah.
You have that scrolling that's like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From the MSX games, and then I just gave up. I went to the PSP version and I beat the game on the PSP. Because the PSP has a revamped version of Parodius, the first one on the MSX, with smooth scrolling, and it was actually the MSX version was a good training for the PSP version.
Nice.
But that's how far I went in order to avoid an easier setting in a shmup.
That's awesome advice for newcomers. I mean, I think what you're saying, and I agree with you in spirit, right? Because the spirit of what you're saying is find an easier game where normal is approachable versus taking a very hard game and playing it on an easier setting. Because there's like natural shmup, like for example, I tell people like maybe pick a compile shmup or something like that. There's a few that are like GG Alesta or GG Alesta 2. There's that big collection that came out, and I think those two games in that collection are just like, they're very, very approachable, especially if you choose certain weapons and then like just erase the screen. And you still get a full shmup experience. You're still dodging, you still do everything. There's definitely games that, console shmups especially, some of them that have that difficulty just on normal modes. I think what you're saying is stick to different games, like Sorcerer Striker, pick that before DOJ, versus trying to like go to DOJ and then pick like an easier setting, or go to like whatever game that's impossible or super difficult and pick an easier setting, which I think is a totally fair thing, because in a lot of ways it's not that fun to be labeled a beginner or have to play an easier mode, especially if like you're just a modern gamer and you've been playing normal modes of whatever. Like you turn on the game and you hit start, right? You don't turn on the game, and no one's used to like going into options and like lowering the difficulty. Like you just play. So then if you go to shmups and you have to start like playing on the baby modes, it feels like you're not in the right place. It feels like, well, maybe these games are not for me because I'm having difficulty already with the easy modes, or they're like I'm not even able to play the normal modes yet. But I think you're saying it's more of a game selection problem than it is like a difficulty problem.
In that sense, what Cave did with Death Smiles was perfect.
The levels,
Because
between
in
levels,
Death Smiles, you set your difficulty for each level.
Yeah.
You can play it as hard as you want.
Kinda.
There are people who get very, very, very high scores playing with lower difficulties. People who get very high scores without going through the X stage. It's amazing. And that's why I like Death Smile so much. Both games.
The Rising games do a great job of this, although I will say the training mode in those games are busted, so don't use training mode in Batrider. But like the concept of like Batrider or Battle Buckrade, or where you have a normal, which is a 5-stage section, it's still the same core game, right? Maybe rank is a little bit easier, but it's like still the same core game. You have a 5-stage version, you have Advanced, which is like the 7-stage variant, so you can still like play and then you have a boss rush mode. At least in Batrider, there's a boss rush mode. So it's arcade games with difficulty settings. To me, it's like, whoa, you're letting this guy, take his quarter, don't don't make it easier for the poor guy. No, but I think those games are super fascinating. What would you say though, so now like turning more to like veterans of the genre who maybe are like watching this and thinking about kind of the millions of games that you've got, 1cc stuff like that, do you think like veterans should approach, like, do you think there's any tips you might have or any comments you might have for like veterans of the genre who want to just continue that 1cc journey, perhaps more in the console space? Because I feel like arcade 1cc's it's already a thing, right? Arcade 1/4, it makes sense. There's a logical connection between a 1cc and an arcade gamer. But I think that the console shmup library is very underexplored by arcade gamers in a lot of ways, because the games are a little bit different in terms of just the way they function, and sometimes very long, right? They're like 50-minute games. Like Gradius V is probably a much longer game than most arcade shmups. But like any kind of tips for veterans, like people who are used to dodging, used to kind of like the genre, that you might want to say from your end, that you maybe like a more deeper thing that you learned as you were getting kind of later in your journey?
That's a hard question. I don't feel like I have any tips for veterans, because I'm not there myself, and I don't consider myself a veteran in any way whatsoever. But as you mentioned, console games, console shmups, there are a few of them that deserve to be played by everyone if they can. Gradius V is a prime example. It's my favorite horizontal game of all time, horizontal shooter. But there are a few games that deserve to be experienced by everyone who enjoys shmups. On the top of my head, let me see if I remember some. Let me see here. One moment.
No problem.
There are a few NES.
So I can maybe, as you're thinking about your list, I can tell you some of the games of that I like coming out of certain like some of my favorite console shmups, maybe to jog your memory, because I have a short list of a few that I really quite like. Like especially like I didn't think I would enjoy NES games, not shmups, games, because I tried to play, because I'm from more of a Super Nintendo era, like as far as my age and things like that. So NES kind of passed me by a little bit. Now there were NESs, but I didn't play them as much. And like I told you, like DOS was like my first experience with games, and DOS games are actually quite advanced compared to like an NES game, But like I didn't think that I would actually end up liking NES games, because I tried to play some Ninja Gaiden and like respawning enemies forever, that where you have to like, if you scroll backwards, this enemy's gonna respawn. It's like I've tried to play different NES games and just felt they were kind of harsh or in ways that I didn't understand. But then when I got into shmups, some of these NES shmups are like, just like holy shit hard. But then when I saw Rekka for the first time, I was like, Rekka was not even one of the first, forget shmups, as a video game, I was like, what is happening here? And it bypassed the graphics, it bypassed the sound, it was not even about that stuff, it was about the emotion. Like the developer was clearly trying to tell you something when you load that game up. And that something is that it's going to be chaotic. There's going to be thousands of things coming at you at lightning speed. When you first hit that reverse scrolling in that second level, and it starts to, try to make you vomit by hitting you with the reverse scrolling, I was like, oh my god, what is even like, it's a work of art to me. It was a work of art to me. And then when you die, what happens, Edward? Nothing. Can you continue? Absolutely not. Yagawa said, Shinobu Yagawa said, nah. Now go fuck yourself. Like, sorry. Like, I know this is a console shmup, but I don't care. It's a competition cartridge. It's super hard shooting game. And the game was taunting me. Yeah, the game was taunting me. And I was like, but it wasn't about that. I was like, I thought to myself, I'll never clear this game. Not possible, right? But it interested me because not a lot that the game was doing was like, it didn't feel like unbeatable. It just felt really hard, you know? And so that's definitely for me, like Rekka is something that like plagued me for years. And I did clear Rekka, by the way. I have cleared Rekka. I know how to clear Rekka. I have like a little guide, on how to clear Rekka. It's like a little boss guide, because you know you have to memorize some of the boss. At least I think that people should memorize some of the boss movements. Don't try to react to certain things in Rekka. But for me, like NES, Rekka, Crisis Wing, super important to me. Amazing game. Fascinating game, Crisis Wing, no score, to my knowledge. Or maybe if there's a score, it like only shows up at the end. I can't remember, but
yes, there is a
it's
score.
like,
there
is there?
Score, but
okay,
it
okay.
only appears until stage 5. Yeah.
Got it. So I don't remember seeing a score and like thinking about the score. So while it's there, it's very hidden, very in the background. So two very fantastic, very old games that to me, not that old, they're 90s games, but like NES games, you know, to me, that I thought were like definitely standouts. But what about for you? That bought you some time.
No. I think regarding the NES, I think it's an amazing system for all genres that you can imagine. Some of my favorite games ever are on the NES. And you were talking about games with no scoring. And one NES game that I played a few years back, like 2 years ago, that was really... It was a surprise for me, but has no scoring system whatsoever. Is a Space Defending Force, SDF.
Uchu Kebidai SDF, the one with the options that flip from the back to the front. Bizarre game. I tried to play that game and just got waxed by stage 1 like 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, 20 times, and I said, I don't know how this game works, so I haven't gone back to it because it's
really good after stage 3. Stage 2 is a kind of a snooze fest, but after that the game picks up the pace, and it's really a well-crafted game for NES standards. And that's an example of what people should try if they want to get out of the arcade path. Another one that I was thinking that would offer lots of value in terms of scoring possibilities is a PS1 game called Harmful Park.
Yes, I just played that. Great game. Love that game.
Harmful Park is a very nice and colorful cute 'em up, as they say. Mm-hmm. But it's got such a deep scoring system that if you are an arcade player, a veteran, and you really enjoy squeezing the game for everything it can offer regarding scoring, pick up Harmful Park.
So you've got the in Harmful Park you've got the metal chaining, where if you drop a metal, the value goes back down. So I know that. That's one thing. The diamonds, the green diamonds or whatever those are. So if as long as you don't drop one of those, they stay at a very high value. I'm sure you can milk some of the bosses, but what is the kind of other hooks of scoring to Harmful Park, if you remember, if you have it off the top of your head? Because I didn't, because I'm not much of a scoring player, so I didn't quite understand, other than like maybe milking some of the bosses or using certain weapons, perhaps, like the blue weapon, the ice weapon.
Yes. The pie launcher. There's a weapon that launches pies at the enemies.
Yes.
And it was the best weapon for scoring, but you needed to really know when and where to use it. And later in the game, the stages get so hard that that it's really hard to actually use this weapon in order to score higher.
It's a timing weapon for sure. It's like 1-shot limit or 2-shot limit.
I always had a hard time playing it. There came a point where I just gave up and I wanted to survive to the end. And that's it. The Harmful Park, my pick for...
I thought it was the ice weapon, because the ice weapon gives you that multiplier when the Zako come in. If you use the ice cream cone, it's like the big laser, you get these times 6, times 7, times 8 multipliers, and suddenly your score starts to go up, and you're like, what is going on? And it doesn't happen with other weapons.
Yes, you have played it recently, I reckon.
I did. I played a little bit of it. But again, not a scoring player, so I just really enjoyed... Honestly, I kind of wish some of the bosses had a little bit more health. because I was missing out on some of the music and some of the bosses by just erasing them with a bomb, because again I was trying to survive. Got my first 1cc and just was using all the tools. They give you lots of tools in that game, lots of resources. I was doing a little bit of scoring, but I wasn't like, I wouldn't say that I really dug deep into it.
I guess you're right about the ice weapon. Yeah.
That thing was interesting because it's like the other weapons didn't have multiplier, so I was like, what is going on? Such a bizarre, cool game though. I love the game. I think it's that developer didn't make any other games, right? They just like knocked it out of the park with this one, and then just excuse the pun, and then just that was it, right? To my knowledge.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Fascinating game. But yeah, there's some pretty cool. You said Gradius V. We got Harmful Park, Uchu Kibitai, STF.
Yeah. Einhander.
Einhander, yeah.
Einhander, yeah.
So that's a game that differs, Japan and then US. Like, which version, do you know which version of that is the one that you prefer or the one that you know?
I don't think there are actually noteworthy differences in this.
Okay.
In this game Einhander from Japanese to North American release.
Okay. I heard it was like ammo and the speed of weapon switching perhaps were two differences.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. I didn't know. I just played the Western version.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the one I have, I think. So that's the one I ended up kind of like messing around with. Yeah. Oh, the you know how the PlayStation 1 with the way it handled like fog and graphics, and like it was like minimalist but also emotive. I think that Einhander does that really, really well. Like, good example of that on the PlayStation, along with other graphically impressive games.
It's a great game, graphically speaking. Einhander.
Sound too, like the whole music and everything is just really good.
Yeah,
the music is amazing in Einhander. Holy crap!
Exactly. I got the soundtrack.
Oh, you got the soundtrack?
Yes, I got the soundtrack. I used to buy soundtracks to video games back then. Not anymore. I hope they come with the games when I buy them, but I need to.
Uh-oh. Hold on. I think we lost you for a sec.
Love the soundtrack.
Oh, it's incredible. I think soundtrack, we always talk about this, like, soundtrack's so important to shmups, like, the games themselves. Like, it's such a huge part of the emotive quality of the game.
Yeah, and I only started to enjoy Einhander when I cranked up the volume of the TV.
Crank it.
I was trying to play the game, but I was like, this is like, meh, it's not really my thing. But one day there was nobody home, and then I set the volume close to maximum, like 90%, and then I listened to the music, and then it suddenly clicked like this.
Yeah,
then
so
I
important.
Played Einhander to the end. Yes, of course.
All right, so let's talk a little.
I like the game more because of the soundtrack.
Totally, yeah. I think it's super important, and I think like certain games, I'm with you where it's sort of like the game's good, but like maybe it's not a max volume game. It's just like you're enjoying it, you're enjoying the dodging, you kind of know what's happening. I actually like games that have audio cues, like audio cues for either bullets that are about to be fired or audio cues for like a hyper that's ready or a bomb that's ready. Like, I love stuff like that because I think it adds to the immersion of the game and gives you, especially if games can do it somehow sound effect wise, where it's like you hear a whoop and then the shot comes, so you can like use your ears to dodge aimed bullets while navigating, terrain or other aimed patterns. I think that stuff is amazing to me. When it's hard to pull off, right? Not a lot of developers can pull it off, or there was not a lot of dev power either back in the day to have sound effects, really coming at you 360 degrees. But I think that stuff's super important. Any tell that let's say helps you dodge, I think is always going to be good, or lets you know that you have a resource ready is always going to be good. When like thinking about like your whole collection and like some of the stuff you talked about recently, some of the games you've been playing. I think you were playing Eschatos and some of these other things. Like, what's sort of next for you in terms of the blog? Like, it feels like you're kind of coming back into this. Like, your daughter's a little bit older and stuff like that. Where can people find you? What do you want to do next? Like, what's like your next big journey here in the genre? Like, are you gonna? Because games are coming out at a weird frequency now. A lot of them are coming out on PC too. Like, there's a lot of Steam shmups. Like, that's not you can't consider that a console, so to speak, but there's sort of a lot going on in the scene. I think is sort of like bubbling to the top. How are you gonna like sort of navigate this kind of immediate future of the genre?
Well, as I mentioned, I am a dinosaur. A prime example. A prime example of being a dinosaur is that I recently played Darius Burst on the PSP.
Yeah.
And Darius Burst was the game that made me purchase the PSP.
You purchased the PSP in 2022?
Yes, no, 2010.
Ah, okay.
2009.
It was ages ago. You revisited it just now.
When I heard that Taito would be releasing a new Darius game, I had to buy the system. So I purchased the PSP, then I got Darius Burst. But why I didn't play Darius Burst then? Ever since I started the blog, there was a point when I thought I should tackle the series, Shmup series chronologically, which means that I would not be able to play Darius Burst unless I had played Darius 2, Darius Gaiden, Darius. Only after that I would be able to play Darius Burst. That's why. So
you gotta play in order.
This is a hint of how. Yes, in order. So this is a hint of how I want to evolve with my playing and my collection, because for another rule that I set, because we are all like nerds, is that for every game I purchase, I need to beat another game. I need to clear my backlog. So next in time, for example, I want to play Raiden 3 because I was able to clear Raiden DX, then Raiden 3, 4, Darius Burst, then now there's another Chronicle EX Plus or whatever.
Yeah. There's Chronicle Saviors. It's a very long game too. Very complicated game.
Sexy Parodius, because I've cleared Chatting Parodius. And Gradius is done, and all these series, I need to get through the series in chronological order. So, Dodonpachi Daifukatsu after DOJ. I've never thought that I would be able to clear DOJ, but I was able, and Daifukatsu is next. So, whenever I beat one of these hard games, I set on beating another hard game. For instance, Raiden Fighters. Have you played Raiden Fighters?
Yeah, it was actually one of the first
Fighters?
shmups I tried to play, and I hated the experience because it was so hard for me.
It's insane.
So I was like early on in my shmups, I was like, oh, I love the way this game sounds and looks and all these cool ships and all this kind of stuff. And I credit fed the game a little bit, and I was like, okay, this isn't not too bad. Like, I could probably do this. And I started to play, and then as I got further into other stages, bosses were doing things they never did before. Bullets were coming out like at speeds that they never were coming out before. And it was my first experience with game rank, like game becoming harder as you play more on one credit. And I was like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this. I don't have the memorization capacity or like the wheel or the drive at this point to play Raiden Fighters. I do have Raiden Fighters Aces on 360. I'm excited to play it. It's a cool game. The visuals are cool. The music is good and bad. Some of the music is good. Some of the music I'm like...
The music is awful. It's awful.
Yes!
The music is awful. Raiden Fighters music is like noise.
It's noise. It's noise music. I can appreciate noise sometimes, but
there's only one theme that really clicks with me. I think it's for stage 4 or 5, one of those random stages. But what I wanted to say is that I hated Raiden Fighters when I tried to play it once in a competition. I don't remember, STGT or whatever. But there came a point where I thought I need to play this game. I need to start the series somehow, and I learned how to score with I didn't want to use the faster ships that everybody uses, like the slave.
I don't want to use slaves either. No. I'm not using slaves. I think it's not even that it's cheating. It just doesn't look very fun because the whole mechanic, the special weapon mechanic of the game, all the missiles and the lasers. I thought that was such an integral part of the game. I don't want to bypass like half the special weapons in the game just for a small hitbox, just for a 1cc. Like, to me, it's like missing the point.
There's nothing wrong with playing with the slaves, the Judge Spear or whatever, but I wanted to use the default chip, and then I chose it, and I learned how to play the game with it. It's a slow ship, the Aegis, I think.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, that's actually one
slower ship. It's not as slow as the Raiden.
That's the slow ship.
Those ones are dreadful. Those ones are dreadful, but I learned how to play the game, how to score. I didn't drop the medal in my 1cc.
Wow.
I had a good time doing it, but I had to practice a lot for months in order to learn the game. And I did it. And there will be one point in time when I'm going to play Raiden Fighters 2, which I hope will be easier because I have the experience of Raiden Fighters 1, which I used to hate. But whenever I manage to beat one of these hard games, I go to the next. And that's how I want to evolve with the blog. Of course, I will try to beat other easier games in between. As you said, I'm picking up the pace again with the blog posts, but that's just because I'm having a little bit more time. And
Sure.
Let's see how it goes. My aim was to do at least one blog post per month, and I was able to keep it ever since I started. And let's see how it goes. Harder games, easier games, just for fun. Games that are just for fun, like these games coming out for the PS4 from these indie games getting physical editions. I like them as well. They're quick to be cleared, and they're fun. And sometimes I even try to get my wife and my daughter to play with me.
Yeah, so you do play PC games, or PC is considered a part of your journey here? Like I did see a handful of them on your 1cc log, like Exceed Third and a couple things. So I'm trying to curious, like, because I do think there's some connection from the PC to the future. I know you like to collect physicals, and you're mostly a console gamer. So what's gonna happen here when, like, you know, like a PC game comes out, it's really good, but it doesn't come out on console? Like, are you gonna?
Yeah. Crimson Clover is an example of a great PC title.
Incredible
it's an amazing game, and I'm waiting for it to come out for the PS4, but it's not happening anytime soon. But sorry. As far as PC gaming goes, what happens is that most often I play PC games that are chosen by. I mentioned that I have a group, a WhatsApp group, and we choose one game per week to play.
Okay.
And when PC games are selected, I play it as well. I do not go out of my way to search for PC games to play. Vastinex, I think Vastinex was the last one that I played.
It's a Kesta game. It's a Thunder Force clone, yeah.
Yes, Thunder Force-like game. It's amazing. It's got an amazing soundtrack. It's a great game. And also Blue Wish Resurrection.
I free game.
It was Blue Wish Resurrection. A free game. Both games are free.
That's
freeware,
right.
And they are amazing games, and they have more value than some commercially released games if you think about it.
Zakesta can make some games.
Yes, I don't really go out of my way to play PC games. I have some games in my Steam account, and I think the last one that I played was Satasius.
Oh yeah, sure.
Satasius.
Yeah, I have not played it.
Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting game. I'm waiting for the physical edition for the Dreamcast to come to see how it stands. But it's PC gaming is not really my thing, as you mentioned from the blog post count. But whenever I get the chance and people drive me towards that, I'm eagerly waiting to play these games as well. I don't have any gripes whatsoever. It's just that my preference is console gaming. That's why.
On PC, what do you hook up control-wise when there's no? Because you have the kind of the whole option of controls. Like, what do you like if you're playing on PC? What do you rock on PC controller-wise?
I use an Xbox wired controller for the PC. USB controller, that's the one I use, but I noticed that my controller is getting bad on one of the buttons, and I need to buy a new one.
Okay.
I tried to buy one when I was in my last trip, but I couldn't. It's getting hard to find these Xbox 360 controllers for PC. But that's the one I use.
I may have one that I might be happy sending you, but I have to go look if it's there.
Great news.
I'll go and look. I also have some knockoffs and stuff that I just acquired because I bought a second 360 because I've acquired so many games, shmups specifically on 360, that at this point I don't want to ever not have a 360 to play those on. So I have two 360s now, and one of them is like everything's installed, but it's just like offline. It just sits there, and one of them is like my main 360. And so shmups have gotten me to buy a whole freaking console, backup console, because I know the 360 reliability can be up and down. Now my let's say call it new 360, that's like post-launch, maybe version 3 or 4 or whatever, when they added HDMI and a couple other things, is still doing well. So, but I just got kind of spooked and was like, well, maybe, what if I'll never be able to play Futari again, or what if I'll never be able to play Under Defeat, HD, or like some, Raiden Fighters. We were just talking about that, like all these important games to me anyway. So I have a backup. I have a backup 360, for that reason. I will say, like, if, I'm obviously not in your WhatsApp group, but there is always the one game on PC that I always make sure that people at least give it a shot. I'm sure you've heard about it, which is Zero Ranger. Zero Ranger is a game that is super special to me. I think it's super special to a lot of other people, and it's an experience. It's actually what got me into the genre. So I can say it's quite a special game. I beat it with continues. I'm now working on my 1cc. I'm getting closer as the days go on. I'm getting closer. I think I did like a 3cc yesterday. But it's like I still need to clean up some sections. There's a lot of cool things you can do in the game, so I'm trying to showcase some of those things. That's kind of slowing my pace down. I'm also picking a ship that I don't see a lot of 2-alls with this particular ship, so I'm trying to do something unique, which for me, again, as a newer player, is a little bit more difficult than picking the easier ships, but it's a very special game to me. But that's the one PC game. It's like, everybody's like, when's it coming out on Switch? When's it coming out on PS4? And it's not going to happen. Well, let me back up. I don't know if it's going to happen. I know that the developers that worked on this game for since like 2008, and the code is like a mess, and they're amazing people. The two Finnish developers who worked on this game. Actually, one of them did the music for it as well, so it's a very impressive game. But I know that the game is like this, this sculpture that was a brick in 2006 and 7 and 9, and got code was added, modes were added, things were cleaned up, new effects were added, and I don't know if it's not like one of those things where you can just push the button and now it's on Switch, it's probably not going to happen anytime overnight. But that's the one game that everyone's clamoring for. It's like, oh, I'm a console gamer and I don't want to play on PC, But so I'll toss that to you. But it sounds like you've got series. You've got Raiden series to complete. Sounds like you have these lineages of these series that you're going to complete, and then but then there's these new games, that don't have a Gradius or a Darius attached to them, or a Dodonpachi. But it sounds like you're not done with those older journeys. So it feels like you're going to be playing games that are still like 10, 12, maybe further years old for a little while yet, until you maybe get to SDOJ or something. Maybe by then there will be a port. I don't know. There's a 360 port, of course, but who knows? There's some input lag with that port. Maybe that's not great. But, it sounds like your journey is going to continue. It feels weird because you've been doing this for 10 years, man, and longer, really. And it feels like you're still not done with the retro part of it. You're like, forget the PC games. Well, when I get there, I'll make a decision about PC games. Yeah. Right now, I still have console games to play, which is an insane concept to me, because you've played so many shmups. You've been doing this for so long, so many years. Yeah, exactly. Look at the collections. It's insane. But you're still kind of picking up where you left off after family kind of, became the focus, and looks like you're gonna keep it old school.
Yeah, I think the journey itself, it's fascinating, and when I started the collection, just a quick thing here, quick note. I had never played a Gradius game in my life. Back then, during Mega Drive days and Super Nintendo games, I did not have access to Gradius 3 on the Super Nintendo, let alone on the PC Engine or the Saturn. So I started Gradius from scratch. Arcade ports and NES ports and PC Engine ports, then Gradius 2, Gradius 3 on the PlayStation 2. I played Gradius 3 without slowdown, and I was able to beat it. Gradius 4, yes, and Gradius 5. So this is going to happen with all the franchises. That's what I intend to do, and it's really a nice journey, and I don't really long to play these new games. I'm really happy that these games are coming. I've heard about Zero Ranger, And I'm all for the developers applying all the things that they want. If they want to take 2 years tweaking the game still, so that they feel the game is ready to be released for the wider audience, console audience. Okay, that's okay. I can wait. And I have waited longer to play some games. And pretty soon I'm going to be 50. I don't know if I'm going to be here. Hopefully I will. And I don't know what I'll be playing by then, but I expect to keep on playing the Donpachis and the Parodiuses and all these new games that are coming out. I loved Crimson Clover, man, and it just aches me that it's not coming for the PS4. It's out for the Nintendo Switch, right?
It is. I have I bought it for Switch because they added a new mode for chumps like me who didn't want to handle arcade, which is this arrange mode, and their arrange mode is really cool, really interesting. It has a lot of Gradius references and influence where you can kind of select what part of your ship to upgrade. It's very light. It's not what you might think it is. It's not like you're doing like very deep, Gradius like optimizations and stuff, but it's quite a fascinating mode. And I was so interested in that mode that I ended up picking up the Switch version because I'm like, I gotta play this new mode because it's kind of like an intermediate difficulty, more of a scoring sort of thing. And so I picked it up, and it feels good. I think that now that the PC version is out, because that Switch version was out years before, well, maybe not years, at least a year before the PC version of the same game came out on Steam. And the PC version, people say, is more responsive, right? The input lag is a little bit less. Switch does have a little bit of, a little bit of input lag. But of course, all consoles had this kind of stuff. Like even like the 360 versions of certain games have input lag. It's a part of I think it's just part of the journey. Like it's not gonna be arcade perfect. Like you're not gonna get PCB responsiveness from a console. But that Crimson Clover was also one of the first games that I played in the genre. However, when I played it, I credit fed it, and I went, oh, okay, and then I put it on the shelf, because I didn't understand what shmups were. Like, I didn't get the idea of, like, 1cc. I didn't even know what it meant. In fact, I beat Zero Ranger, and I beat it with the in-game continues, because the continues are sort of part of the story in that game, and I didn't know what a 1cc was. Like, I just never had that background. Like, 1cc didn't mean anything to me, and when I started seeing people talk about the game in the context of a 1cc, I was like, what are you talking about? And it was like, oh, I get it. Beat the game without continuing. I see. And it's like, oh, arcade game. 1 coin, 1 credit, 1 quarter. I get it now. And so, Crimson Clover, I came back around to it. I played Crimson Clover Novice mode, which I'll disagree with you on this one. We can just... But I think Crimson Clover Novice is an amazing introduction to the genre, to bullet hell, to shmups, to everything. I've tested this out with every single new person, and I have a 100% hit rate on new people to the genre playing Crimson Clover Novice. And if it takes you 2 tries to beat it, you can move up to the next difficulty. And that's 1 hour lost. That's not even you didn't even spend any time. If it takes you 1 try to beat it, fine. If it takes you 5 tries to beat it, 10 tries to beat it, it's just, it has bullets. They're everywhere. It's like it doesn't hold back. You don't feel like you're playing a novice game. You're getting showered by bullets. It's definitely a lot easier. There's more resources. You can get 1-ups after defeating bosses. It's a little bit more lenient other places, and it's definitely way easier than the arcade mode of Crimson Clover, which is serious gaming, serious business. So Crimson Clover is another good gateway drug.
Intensity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great game. That's an interesting that you would bring that up, because I didn't even compute in my head that, oh, right, you probably don't have a Switch, or maybe you're not that interested in Switch. I know a lot of people playing shmups
I don't have a Switch, and I don't intend to have a Switch. No.
There you go. Done. You said it.
No, I had to choose because I have so much stuff here, and I decided to purchase only one system, and it's piling up. The games are coming, and I have to have space for them.
Yeah, they are, and it's totally fine, right? I think most of the releases come out for PS4. It's only the one, Crimson Clover, I think, is the only one that I can think of. I'm trying to think of anything else, but but then there's also some other bizarre, like, there's also interesting kind of like what's on Xbox One, then PS4, but PS4 has Katsui, Sorcerer Striker, Garega. I mean, the big M2, like the very big M2 releases, You know, I think the new Total Plan stuff, the Total Plan arcade games are coming out for PS4, so seems like a pretty good shmup platform. Plus, the input latency is that bit better than Switch. The graphical fidelity is better, output's better, controllers are better. Even though they're not great, they're still better than the Joy-Cons. God forbid, the things suck. And all that kind of stuff, you know. So I totally like respect that decision. That makes a ton of sense. So you know, looking to probably close this out a little bit. I think this is a great discussion. I want to do something a little bit interesting. So what I'm gonna do, and I kind of saw this. I think it was one of your. Some researching you, I found this somewhere, so I'm gonna leverage this as an exercise. So I'm gonna ask folks in chat as well to do this if you want to. So get out your notepads, get out your pens and papers, and we're gonna do a little bonus round, a little bonus stage for fun, just to close things out with some high energy. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go through the alphabet, and you're gonna either say the name of a shmup if you can think of one. Or you're gonna say pass if you can't think of one. Rapid fire, no time to think. You know, we're gonna go through. I'm gonna write them down, and I'll try to provide some screenshots or something of the game, you know, in post so people can see it. But if you guys are in chat or in the comments, get your notepads out. A to Z. We're gonna go through. See if you can think of a shmup on the top of your head. Edward, are you ready?
You want me to say the best one, the best ones? That
Oh,
I
if you even have one,
letter?
whatever you like. I want to see if you can do every letter a shmup. If it's the best one, even better. That's a challenge for yourself. If it's one that you've not won CC'd, even better. But that's additional challenge. Of course, the shmupper wants more challenge out of my task. So no, you just let's just rapid fire and go through and see if you can think of some names. So all right, A, go.
Airbuster.
Airbuster. B.
Battle Garega.
Garega. C.
Korean.
Korean. D.
Darius Burst.
Darius Burst. E.
Escatos.
Nice. F. Oh, come on. 3, 2, 1. No, we're going to G. G.
G.
Yeah.
Gradius V.
Yes, of course, the classic. H.
Honey in the Sky.
What? Never heard of that. Okay, fantastic. We'll have to come back to that. I.
Isolated Warrior.
Oh, great! Oh, I love that one. I've been trying to clear that.
Ikaruga. I would never mention.
You saw Ikaruga in your head and you said, I can't. I love that about you. And Isolated Warrior is actually a really cool game with some really weird stuff in it. But we have to talk about that another time. Jay.
Jikyo Oshaberi Parodius.
Yep, nice. K.
Katsuri.
Ah, easy one. L.
Eldis.
What? Eldis?
Eldis. It's a PC Engine CD game.
Nice. Oh, yeah. I know which one you're talking about. M.
Mushihimesama.
Easy. All right. N.
Nanotech Warrior.
Nanotech Warrior. Okay. O.
Omega 5.
Omega 5. Yep. Wow. P.
Parodius.
Ah, the easy one. Okay. Q.
Parodius
Da. All right. Perfect. I like it. Q. This is tough. Q.
Quattro Arcade. There's an NES collection that's called Quattro Arcade.
I love it. We're gonna have to look. We're gonna have to look that one up to see if you just made that up.
Is that cheating? Is that cheating?
No, it's fine. No, that works. Let's go with R.
R. Radiant Silvergun.
Nice. Good choice. S.
Yes.
Quick.
Civalian.
Civalian. Yes, yes. The snake game. T. Almost there.
Terra Cresta.
Okay. You.
Under Defeat.
Nice. You're doing so good. V.
Varth.
Varth.
Operation
Weird.
Thunderstorm.
Yeah. W.
Wartech.
Lordtech. Okay, all right, fair enough. X.
X.
Yeah.
Everybody remember that the Xevious.
There you go, Xevious. I was gonna say that's the Namco is gonna come through for you. Y. Do I know my alphabet? Y.
I can't remember any Ys. I tried once. I don't think I have any Y game in my collection.
No Ys in your collection.
Y.
Interesting. I'm actually gonna look through to see if if you have anything. It looks like no. Interesting. I wonder if there is a Y shmup now. Now I'm fascinated by this. All right, Z. Of course. Let's close it out.
Zanek Neo.
Yeah. Oh, I need to go back and clear that. I love that game. I really enjoyed my first play of that.
I want you to
So
play that
cool.
one. I want you to play that one, Zanek Neo. Never
It's
played
really
it.
good. It's like a compiled swan song of like so many ships and it's compiling it through and through, but it's not elevated in a way, but it has these scoring mechanics, these bullet clearing mechanics that are more modern, and the soundtrack is delicious, and it actually looks quite good for a PlayStation game as well. It's definitely a PlayStation game. Wow, that's awesome. So really you only had Y, and it was F that you struggled on for some reason. Do you have an F game to plug that? I have two in my head.
No. F. I don't know why F has been such a hard
Mental block. There's so many, but you know it's hard
mental
to.
block. Firebird.
Firebird.
I cheated.
I saw
looking
you
at the
cheating.
games over there.
Yeah, I saw you cheating. I was in my head. I was Fire Shark was in my head, and Flame Zapper Kotsujin was in my head. Actually,
Yeah, Forgotten Worlds. I just saw Forgotten
there's
Worlds.
also Fantasy Zone, which was probably the easier pick.
Fantasy Zone.
But it's not,
Oh my
you know.
God.
Yeah. How dare you? What about Flying Hero Buguru no whatever Daiboken?
Super Nintendo. It's a
Yeah.
fun little game.
I think it's a great game. I think it's a really fun game. I think it's a good entry level shoot 'em up that doesn't try to like wax the floor with you immediately. Lets you
You're
play.
right. Yeah. Pop and Twinbee. Pop and Twinbee is also an excellent shmup on the Super Nintendo.
Pop and Twinbee, when you go into the pink stage and the pigs are surfing, I was like, these surfing pigs are too fucking cool.
That game is class, man. I think it's one of the best shmups on the Super Nintendo, to be honest.
Wow. It's so
I
funny
don't
where we
really-
coincide and where we differ, because I agree with you completely, but a lot of
I
people
don't
think it's
even
too
like
easy.
Twinbee. I don't even like Twinbee.
That's probably why.
I play Twinbee kind of like forced because I've never liked Twinbee 1, 2, or 3, but the Super Nintendo Pop and Twinbee is amazing.
All right, what the heck is Honey in the Sky?
Honey in the Sky is a PC Engine whole card game where you play with kind of a doll that looks like a judo, and it shoots in 8 directions, and
Oh,
it
wow.
has no scoring system as well.
Oh, I think I know this
great-
game. Wait a
It
minute.
has a great soundtrack.
Huh. I think Shmup Junkie had this on his PC Engine like Bible video where he had like
The soundtrack
every
to
single
that
game.
game is amazing.
Wow.
But
Huh.
sadly, the game has no scoring system. I don't know what the developers were thinking.
Wow.
But it's a great little game as well. If you want to challenge yourself with a hook card that's really off the track, that's Honey in the Sky for you.
Well, I think this has been amazing. I've learned a ton. I hope the people have learned a ton. Your journey is so cool and interesting. I'm so glad the blog is still there. I will absolutely link it, and we'll have images and all that kind of stuff so folks can go visit. see what your new monthly game is going to be. It looks like you're going to close out some series. DOJ is a very serious game that a lot of people are very interested in. So your journey is documented. Is there any other places you want to plug? Like, are you gonna hire me to get you back on Twitch so you can start doing some Twitch streaming? Are you going to be doing any other places people should be watching out for your content here in the near future? Because I think it's all awesome stuff.
Yes, if your offer is still up, you can try to help me to get my.
There we go.
Account.
Subscribe to my channel, and we'll get. No, I'm kidding. I don't do the like subscribe stuff. I don't care. If you like the video, great. If you don't, it's fine. But we'll get you set up. But any other places where people can find your stuff?
My stuff.
Yeah.
I think I only deal with the blog and the list of shmups. My list of shmups. I've been keeping it for years now. And that's where my achievements are, and links to the high scores and to each blog post. And my plan is to fill up all the list with links until I can, until I'm able to play, and I'm still not using any glasses, and I can still see the bullets. That's what I want to do as my main hobby, video game hobby.
I love it.
So,
I love it.
Thank you for the chance to be here, Octane. I'm very, very flattered by your invitation. I was very flattered by your invitation, and I hope that your channel continues to thrive and you get much success in the future.
Thanks so much,
As
Edward.
you've been having so far. Your videos are excellent.
I appreciate it. I hope they enjoy this one. We'll do our best as we do, and we'll be in touch, Edward, because I want to keep your journey going. I think you're like, there's very few sites that have what your site has and the layout of all the different links that you have on there with like the Prometheus stuff and like other interesting articles about what is a shmup or why are shmups important, 1cc culture. There's just so much to read there, and I think I haven't stumbled upon a site, there's places to find shmup content, there's Shmup Wiki, things like that, but I haven't stumbled upon a site that really documents the journey in a way that's just nice and easy to follow. And if there's a game that you've played, I can easily get to it and see what you did, how you played it, what you thought about it, and I like that content, like the snippet of content, the like size and conciseness of the content. So that's gonna be great. I'm excited to see more, and yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll keep doing interviews of people who I've stumbled upon the journey, and it's kind of like the. I think I know what I'm gonna title this one after we got through it. But meeting the person behind the score, I think, is really important to me. So you're not just a number on a leaderboard on RestartSyndrome.com. So so now people know. Yeah, there you go. Another plug. RestartSyndrome.com. Put your scores up and go check out where Kollision stands on a game and see if you can beat his score.
I have to update my log there.
I think I might have beat one of your scores. You should go check.
Okay.
Stay on top of everything.
Any questions or any comments, please comment on the blog, and I'll be happy to answer them all.
Amazing. There's your call to action. Go to the link in the description. I'll put it in the comments as well. Go there, find your favorite game that Edward didn't like, or vice versa, and then flame it up on his on his blog, so you can see. Yeah. Thanks a lot for joining. We'll catch up with you guys later. Thanks, Edward.
Bye bye. See ya.